it keeps the whole industry on their toes.
Yeah, and I mean, and the competitors at the higher end of the market are now like, ooh, like I don't know if like Lucid can cut their prices by $10,000 at this moment, right? So yeah, the Teslas get continually tweak with pricing. They have very strong visibility into how pricing impacts demand. They have all the data. They're going to tweak all the time. I mean, what I try to do is, I don't write about $500 or $1,000, but when it's $5,000, $10,000, if we're swinging in the 5% range, I think that's pretty noteworthy. And remember, prices went up during the chip crisis and during the pandemic, and
right.
Now you're starting to see things come back down.
Can I just say, still not very affordable.
It's still a big price tag. I mean, $90,000.
Especially especially for financing a car. I mean, but you're talking to someone who's never bought a new car in her life and drives a 99 Subaru Beater that is fully paid for.
I love that. Hey, listen, can we get to another story that's actually out from you, and it's on the Bloomberg terminal and at Bloomberg.com. And you remind us that while we didn't get a ton of stuff out of that Tesla investor meeting last week, what we did get is a look at the Tesla bench. Can you talk us through? It's a great kind of read of who, what, where, and why, along with pictures, so that we can kind of get familiar with some of these faces.
Yeah, at Investor Day last week, Musk shared the stage towards the end of the 4-hour presentation with 16 other executives. And it's the first time that so many other leaders at this company have been on stage with Musk. And I think it was a clear attempt by the company to kind of showcase, okay, even though our CEO bought Twitter and has been very distracted this year, we have this deep bench of talent that's working really hard on all of these things behind the scenes. And some faces were familiar, like Zach Kirkhorn, the CFO, Drew Baglino, who's the de facto CTO. But we saw also like the very recently hired new general counsel. We heard from the charging woman. We saw some people that we've only heard as disembodied voices on the earnings call, and I think that was that gave investors some confidence that there is a deep bench of talent there, even if Musk is now running 5 companies.
Dana, you mentioned some names there, but who should we know? For the casual, Tesla follower, who should we keep an eye on?
Tom Zhu, who spoke at the Investor Day, he, is a rising star. He kind of began as like the supercharging guy in China, then he ran APAC. He's now basically overseeing manufacturing facilities across the company, and he spoke quite a lot at the Investor Day and is definitely one to keep an eye on. I thought Rebecca Tanucci's presentation about charging was spectacular. She's someone that we've never heard from before. I thought she was really interesting. Obviously, Lars Moravi and Franz from Vehicle Engineering and Design are key people as well.
All right, love it. It's really a great house guide to the faces over at Tesla. Dana, thank you so much. Dana Hall, she's Senior Technology Reporter at Bloomberg News, joining us once again via Zoom from our San Francisco bureau. And if you take a look, quick check on Tesla shares, they do close the day down about 2%. They've been on quite a tear, though. They're up almost 60% so far this year. We talked about valuation earlier.
Yeah, I know. I mean, you compare this to other car makers. I mean, it is just incredibly expensive. But as we were talking about, I don't know, you had an interesting move from Morgan Stanley saying, I don't know, you got to think of Tesla, you got to think of Ferrari as, sort of luxury items.
Like that, right. And you think about kind of the growth rates that they're seeing in terms of revenue. I don't think you're seeing that. 25%, I think we're looking at 2023 for top line for Tesla this year, if I look at the FA page on Bloomberg. All right, Carol Master, Katie Greifeld, this is Bloomberg Radio.
And there's still time to check out our Business Week weekend podcast and the cover story, The Fuji, The Fugitives, and the FBI. Download it now at Bloomberg.com or wherever you get your podcasts. And stay tuned, because up next we're going to talk about Grayscale versus the SEC. The digital asset manager sued the SEC back in June over ETF conversion of their Grayscale Bitcoin trust. It didn't happen, and now they're going to court. So we're going to talk about all that next. This is Bloomberg.
Now your 3-day weather forecast on Bloomberg 1130.
Dry weather with occasional clouds continues for the rest of today, then for tight periods of rain developing going to snow with an inch or less by morning, low temperature near 32. So we got a little bit of snow early Tuesday morning ending, and partly sunny and 45. Fair at night around 30 to 35, and windy weather for Wednesday and probably Thursday as well, near 45 with a mix of clouds and sun. This is Gary Best with your 3-day weather forecast on Bloomberg 1130.
Breaking news first. Bloomberg spoke exclusively with J.P. Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon.
The thing I worry the most about is Ukraine. Oil, gas, our relationship with China. I think a mild recession is possible, a harder recession is possible. I think there's a good chance that inflation will come down, but not enough by the fourth quarter. The Fed may actually have to do more.
For market-moving news from the top names on Wall Street. Stay with Bloomberg 1130, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com.
Debbie Hart is president of BioNJ, which represents the interests of more than 400 New Jersey-based biotech companies. She's also a strong voice in the biotech sector, supporting research universities like New Jersey Institute of Technology. She sees NJIT as a valuable partner in attracting venture capital and biotech startups to the Garden State.
So the number one reason that companies come here to New Jersey for the biotech industry is for our talent. We estimate that there were about 30 biotech companies in the early 90s in New Jersey, about 80 in 1998. Today there are more than 400. And that growth continues, and it's come from every possible angle. Other countries, other states. They've spun out of our academic institutions as well as our biotech and our pharma companies, and we expect that growth to continue long into the future. And NJIT is a pipeline for talent, for companies, for entrepreneurs to do that important work.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu.
In the 1980s and 90s, John McAfee was a Silicon Valley icon. But after he sold his company and basked in his riches, things took a dark turn.
I will not allow them to imprison me and shut my voice down.
This season on Foundering, we'll retrace the life of John McAfee. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Bloomberg Invest returns to London on March 22nd, gathering leading financial thinkers in investing to identify the biggest risks and greatest opportunities facing economists, money managers, and influential investors in the region. From traditional investment tools to crypto to alternative assets, how should we put our money to work? Join to hear from executives from Blackstone, Quantum Light, and Sotheby's. Learn more about Bloomberg Invest, strategies for wealth creation at BloombergLive.com/investradio.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on Bloomberg Television, and the Bloomberg Business app. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
421 on Wall Street. We check the markets all day long here at Bloomberg. I'm Charlie Pellet as we await the latest numbers out of Trip.com. The group has been on a tear lately. Trip.com shares so far this year, they are up by 12.7%, but again, we are awaiting the latest numbers out of Trip.com. WW International, the old Weight Watchers, reported loss per share for the fourth quarter that missed the average analyst estimate. The company is making an acquisition. Weight Watchers will acquire Sequence. That's the digital health platform for clinical weight management. After hours, WW up by just about 1%. Stock market failed to gain much traction today. In fact, the S&P did give up an advance of 32 points. It was up 0.8%, ended higher, barely up by less than 0.1%. The S&P today up by 2 points. The Dow up 40, higher by 0.1%. Nasdaq down 13, a drop there of 0.1%. 10-year yield 3.96%, with a 2-year 4.87%. Spot gold down $9 the ounce to $18.46, drop there of 0.5%. West Texas Intermediate crude up 1.1%, $80.56 a barrel. I'm Charlie Pellet, and that is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thank you so much. Bloomberg Business Week brought to you by Innovation Refunds. This is your daily reminder from Innovation Refunds. There is more pandemic relief available to claim for small and medium-sized businesses. The ERC is a refundable payroll tax credit your business may qualify for even if it already received PPP. Let the tax professionals at Innovation Refunds show you how to get the money your business may be eligible to receive with no upfront costs. For more information, head to getrefunds.com. So, Katie, lots of things going on in Washington, D.C. tomorrow. We've already talked about Jay Powell being up on Capitol Hill, but there's more.
Oh, Oh, there is so much more because the crypto world, once again, will be focused on Washington, D.C. We're going to have oral arguments begin in Grayscale Investments' lawsuit against the Securities and Exchange Commission. This comes back to June. You had Grayscale sue the SEC over ETF conversion for their Grayscale Bitcoin Trust. We're going to talk about that now with Vildana Heinrich. She's a cross-asset reporter, and she joins us now in the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio. Vildana, for the casual follower of what the heck is going on with Grayscale, maybe you could just step back and explain what this lawsuit is about.
Yeah, this lawsuit is big news because we have the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, which is the largest Bitcoin trust, the largest product of its kind for cryptocurrencies. And what Grayscale is looking to do is they're looking to convert into an ETF, which obviously would make the product much more accessible to the everyday person. It would make it accessible to institutions as well. It would potentially help unlock a ton of value because right now you have a lot of Bitcoin stuck in the trust, which is trading at a discount to its underlying holdings. And so that's what all of this is centered around. Grayscale says it would like to convert the trust into an ETF. And so we have the oral arguments kicking off this week, and we'll see what happens. But a lot of people are paying attention because there's a lot of people who would like to see this happen.
Are they right in terms of the conversion would be more true for them in terms of how it trades?
Well, right now it is trading at a discount to its holdings. Should it convert into an ETF, that means that we can have a creation redemption process, which is what is normal in the ETF space for ETFs that can sort of hold the value of the ETF to NAV in industry parlance. But it might be an uphill battle because we do have regulators right now really cracking down on the cryptocurrency space. We know that that's been happening for the last couple of weeks, especially in the wake of what happened with FTX and all of the other fallouts that we had following FTX, but also other ones pre-FTX.
It makes me wonder about their timing. Like, why not wait until kind of the regulatory environment? But you guys know this world better than I do. Why don't they?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of the part of the problem is the discount. I mean, a lot of their investors are really unhappy because if you compare the performance of GBTC versus the actual price of Bitcoin, there is a lot of daylight there.
Yeah, there's a gap between the two. So if Bitcoin is down, it's possible that then GBTC is down even more. So there are a lot of investor complaints. We have heard from a lot of investors who are unhappy with that performance. But again, Grayscale and lots of others in the industry say that they would love to see a spot Bitcoin ETF because right now we have a futures-based Bitcoin ETF. And Grayscale is arguing that because that exists, they should also be allowed to convert GBTC into an ETF.
And just to put some numbers to the differences in the structures right there, GBTC, if you look over the past 5 years, it's lost about 25%, whereas if you look at Bitcoin itself, Bitcoin is up 126% in that time. Big difference. So you laid out Grayscale's case that because the SEC has allowed a futures-backed product to launch, that they should allow a physically backed product to launch. What has the SEC said about that? What is the street saying about that? What is the current thinking?
So, Carol, you brought up an interesting point in that you were asking about the timing. But what happened was that in October 2021, Grayscale filed to convert GBTC into an ETF. We didn't hear from the SEC until June of last year, at which point they rejected that application, which the SEC has done numerous times in the past. What they do is they cite, any of the issues happening in crypto that we're all familiar with, scams or manipulation, any of those very negative issues that we're very familiar with. The SEC tends to cite those. Within hours, Grayscale sued the SEC. So that's where we get at least a little bit more info on the timing, on why it's happening right now.
What do those folks within the legal world with financial expertise say about Grayscale's case versus the SEC, or the SEC maybe having a better case against Grayscale?
So for one, I did speak with somebody at Bloomberg Intelligence who said there's tons of appetite for this. So we have to remember that there are lots of retail investors. There's also institutional investors who would love...
That doesn't always mean it's the right thing, but go ahead.
Yes, of course. But just to point that out, that there is appetite for it. On the other hand, I spoke with a lawyer who's been involved in the crypto space for a long time, and he said, number one, don't forget what's happening with the regulatory background right now. The SEC, other regulators, they're cracking down. They're really cracking down, especially in the last couple of weeks. It's been sort of just lots of very bold moves on the side of regulators, so don't forget that. Second, it's very hard to go up against the SEC and win, according to this lawyer who has seen maybe not cases like this one, but he has just been following this space for a really long time. He says it's very, very hard to go up against the SEC and actually win, so we have to keep that in mind.
And so what is the sort of timeline here? I mean, we have the oral arguments tomorrow, and again, this case was filed in June, so we've been waiting a long time for this to really kick off. What is sort of the run of show here on this timeline?
I think we're going to be waiting longer.
Okay.
We better get used to the waiting. I think Bloomberg Intelligence says that they're expecting a final verdict maybe in the second or the third quarter, so we'll still be waiting quite a bit.
Yeah, I try to think about with something like this, is it akin to some other innovative investment vehicle in the past that needed legitimacy by the SEC? Can we liken it to anything, or there really isn't anything out there?
I mean, I suppose you could make the comparison to the futures Bitcoin ETF, which got approved a year and a half ago. But that is a different. It's still different because we have crypto futures that trade via the CME. For Bitcoin, for spot Bitcoin trading, you have hundreds of exchanges all around the world. And then don't forget what happened with FTX and what happened with others, where there has been trouble that potentially helps bolster the SEC's case, where they can say, look at all these spots of troubles that have been cropping up, especially over the last year and a half, where, you know, it might strengthen the SEC's case.
Trouble is a nice diplomatic way to phrase what happened with FTX. That leads nicely into my next question, because we did get some breaking news a little after 2 p.m. that Alameda, which of course was the hedge fund, the trading arm associated with FTX, has actually filed its own lawsuit, this against Grayscale, alleging, quote, exorbitant management fees. It also accused Grayscale of improperly preventing redemptions from the Bitcoin and Ether trusts it manages. Vildana, to me, this just, again, goes to show how interconnected this entire industry is.
It's super interconnected. We had a ton of hedge funds, especially, remember, Three Arrows, which is another point of trouble, if we can use that word again, that had been using and trading GBTC. Lots of other places had been using and trading GBTC. But I think, Katie, this is why you and I love the world of ETFs, right? Because we know that, so this complaint, a lot of it seems to stem on the idea that GBTC, it carries a 2% management fee, which tends to be a lot higher than your typical ETF, where you might have, I think the average is something like 0.5.
I mean, even the futures ETF, which is also still expensive, it has a fee of 0.95%.
That's right. It's a big difference again.
It's a big difference. So a lot of people are harping on this idea that GBTC it charges a larger fee, and they'd like to potentially see it reduced. But it's interesting because it's the traditional world of finance with ETFs. It's interconnected with what's happening with crypto. Tons of people using GBTC and being interested in it and trading it over the last couple of years. So a lot, I think, hinges on this.
Then you add in the SEC, you add in the courts. It's a lot of fun, Carol.
I can't, no, it's absolutely fascinating, but I can't help but feel that once there's better regulatory oversight, you're not so sure.
I don't know. I don't know what will happen in terms of regulation, because we've been hearing that word for so